Hello, good morning, good afternoon, welcome. I'm very pleased to be joined by Rene Schutte. Rene, as most of you know, is the director of HyNorth and has been working with Gasunie for a number of years. Is very familiar to the hydrogen world with board positions previously in Hydrogen Europe and in the fuel cell joint undertaking as well for many years. So very familiar. So it'd be good to catch up and get your thoughts, Rene. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for being here. And having this conversation with you.
Yeah. So you're going to be speaking at the forthcoming World Electrolysis Congress. It's going to be a good gathering happening in Düsseldorf, 4th to the 7th of March. I guess lots to discuss, particularly obviously around the electrolysis part of the value chain, a key value part of the value chain. We've seen I think the third annual doubling last year to over a gigawatt, and hopefully it will keep on doubling. But yeah, what are your thoughts and your perspectives? Maybe give people a bit of a background about HyNorth and Gasunie's perspective of where we sit today in January 2024. Maybe some reflections around the gas package, etc.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Yeah, just to explain maybe a little bit, I think Gasunie is well known by many people as the infrastructure company in the Netherlands, also developing infrastructure for hydrogen at this moment in time, next to storage and import. HyNorth is an independent foundation actually looking at the implementation of the hydrogen investments in the northern Netherlands part. So we have a lot of potential investments that are already on the table. We're trying to connect them to help them make the investment and help them overcome the blockages and issues. So that's a little bit on HyNorth. I think at this moment in time, what you actually see is that we're coming in a phase that we need to come from plans to the actual realization. And I think that's already supported by a lot of thoughts and regulation that is given by Europe in gas package for starters, but also in the RED 3, RED 2, RED 3. But there are still a lot of issues and challenges ahead, which I would actually summarize as it's still very complex. And we need to break down the uncertainty for all the parties involved. And the uncertainty is not only about the money. We had a lot of discussion about money in the past years, subsidies, etc., etc. But it's also in receiving the permits, in the learning curve that all the permitting organizations need to go through before they are able to issue permits, which is completely understandable. But it's always the devil is in the detail. It's also about the large volumes that we need. We've talked a lot about scaling up as the first three priorities in hydrogen, which is still priority, though you cannot start at the gigawatt scale. You need to start at smaller scale. So how to get there and how to offer sufficient, let's say, certainty for the investors that there will be a return on the investment. But also for the potential investors in the offtake that maybe cannot commit to the large volumes in the beginning, how to give them the sufficient comfort that they can make the next step without risking all of the business they have. So it's also bridging the risks in the value chain, which are different because of different timings, different sizes, etc., etc. So it's about how do we reduce uncertainty, and at the same moment in time, how do we make sure that everybody makes their commitments to make the next step? So we've had a lot of, let's say, free discussion, but I think the time of free discussion is over, and not that we should not discuss anymore with each other, but that if you really want to make the step, you need to make the step now, and if you still hesitating or want to do something else, it's perfectly fine. But then try not to block the other way, the all the projects moving forward in that respect.
Yeah.
So it's time of making choices.
Yeah. In terms of, I mean, you mentioned a couple of things that sort of stood out to me in terms of, complexity. It's obviously a highly complex environment. The regulations are complex. There is obviously issues around the temporal correlation and geographic correlation, all of that detail. Is there other areas of complexity that could be simplified for investors, and or just maybe to unpick around how to take some more uncertainty out of the market? That uncertainty is so perhaps around pricing or first mover disadvantage by having good CFD contracts, or maybe are there any sort of solution sets that you can see helping alleviate those two areas?
Yeah, I would like to mention two. If you look at the projects that are on the table, at least across Europe, then the geographical scale is quite large.
Mm.
And it's very difficult to connect over a very long distance all of those projects at once. So what you need to do is to take smaller steps to end at the large investments. For that reason, for instance, HyNorth has introduced the hub and spoke approach for the Northern Netherlands, where we said, well, the Northern Netherlands geographically may be a small region compared to Europe in total. But even there, we say, well, we need to cluster the investments in hubs, we call them HyHubs, to make sure that the investors are close to each other. The size of the investments is connected to each other. And from that, you can expand and build on. So don't try to make the plan for Europe at once. You need to, and it's, I think the European Commission also has adopted that approach in the hydrogen valleys. Bring the investments together in a smaller area and then connect them and expand. That's one of the things. The other point that I want to mention, and I think that's a good development for H2 Global European Hydrogen Bank in providing let's say the investment surety throughout the value chain. I think in concept it's very good. I do believe, by the way, that concept needs to be copied to regions.
Yeah.
So to help the regions start, you should not make it only the full size instrument over Europe, if you like.
Yeah.
So go and look at the region, but also in the execution of it, you see the difficulties in the detail in the end. So the intention is good, the idea is good, and then when you want to work it out, you face some issues that are more difficult to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even at some moment in time, you need to set aside some of the normally market level playing rules, if you like, and say, well, we need to first start. We need some parties to make the first investments, and we accept that not everybody can do it at this moment in time, and it may seem unfair, but if we try to treat everybody on the same page, it becomes a difficult game to play. So to find ways to make it come to the region and find ways to help the first movers move, and not forgetting in the end that we need a level playing field, of course. So I don't want to set this aside on the long run. Yeah.
Understood. You mentioned before permitting, and I was wondering if you're alluding to some of the sort of, I guess, classic blocks that we've seen in the renewable energy industry, and just simply around permits from authorities for building permits, and obviously the complexity of building what is chemical infrastructure and obviously safety impacts. Are there some issues there that you see in yourself in the Netherlands or potentially in other states, or even in terms of sort of cross-border projects? But is there some sort of practical barriers to actual deployment now that need to perhaps be eased? I was talking to people around, Italy, etc. There are some big planning hurdles and permitting hurdles there.
Actually, some of the permit developments are coming on quite well, but I actually see three little practical issues that block the overall development, if you like. Mm-hmm. The first one, and I think that's recognized throughout Europe, the lack of personnel. So you need people to do it.
Yeah.
And as long as people are not available because of the tight market, then it takes more time because you have less people and need to do the same. The second is the learning curve. We need to understand and accept that also the permitting organizations need to go through a learning curve to understand what it's all about. So persons need to go through a learning curve, but organizations as well. And then we need to accept that some of the answers we just don't know. So for some of the answers to find out what are the actual risks, because permitting sometimes it's considered a nuisance. That somebody just blocks the investment. But of course, at the moment that something goes wrong, everybody's going to point at the permitting organization, say, well, what were you thinking, and not giving the proper permit. So it's very important that we have sound permits and that we have them fast. But for some of the issues that need to be considered, maybe further investigation needs to be done. So we basically came up for Northern Netherlands with suggestion, give additional support, extra support to the permitting organizations to allow them to learn fast. And to make the moves that they need to move to make, and that's the benefit of everybody in the end. But it's very practical, and there's nothing to do with the issue itself, if you like.
No, it's a good point. I mean, you have all this money going into building the projects, and then you've got the same permitting authority with the same amount of jobs, and everything's frozen.
Exactly, and we need
you
to
need to put some of that money down the whole value in terms of expediting a project. It's a good point.
And in essence, it's little money if you compare it to the big subsidy projects, of course. But we need to recognize that it's needed. And
it's a bottleneck.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, it's fascinating to talk to you, Rene. As I said, you're going to be speaking at the World Electrolysis Congress. We look forward to helping unpick some of these sort of practical challenges and helping accelerate the projects, accelerate the growth of this industry. So it's going to be tremendous. As I said, thanks a lot. It was great to talk to you again, and we look forward to meeting you face to face in Düsseldorf.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks very much for this opportunity.
Yeah, cheers, Rene. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.